What's good, everybody? Welcome into a Friday edition of Daily Betslip. I'm your host, Donnavan Smoot. Got the homie Ben Heisler with me today. Ben, what's going on?
What's happening, Donovan? Happy Friday to be on board with you today. Ton to dive into. I'm a little bit sad that we no longer have NBA finals to look forward to, but uh, I'm curious as to whether or not the finals lived up here to your expectations because I'm going to be starting to look ahead in the future, which is always fun. But I will miss that grind of NBA basketball for the next several months.
Yeah, listen, as a Steph Curry fan, last night was fantastic. Had all the group chats were popping, so last night was great. It definitely lived up to the hype. But like you said, we got a lot that we're going to get to. We're already going to be looking ahead to the 2023 NBA Finals. Those odds came out today. We're going to be talking about some of the overpriced teams, some of the underpriced teams. We have our bad beat of the day, our best bets for tonight, and our game of the night. The Toronto Blue Jays and the New York Yankees square off today in an AL East battle, and so that's going to be great. So stay tuned for that. But first, I want to get to our bad beat of the day, which kind of ties into the NBA Finals that wrapped up last night. And I don't think either one of us really had a bad beat, but there was one person probably the worst beat of the entire NBA season, and it's this Celtics fan. Can we get the tweet of the Celtics fan who got the championship banner tattooed on him, and it said 2022 NBA champion Boston Celtics, and he was probably feeling really good, about a week ago about that tattoo, and the Celtics end up losing in 6 games, and now he just has a terrible tattoo.
Donovan, it's amazing. Like it's a full on black and white championship banner directly right here on his arm. It says 2022 NBA champions, Boston Celtics. It's spectacular. I've never been like the guy that's like, you know what? I'm going to celebrate my team in the only way that I know how, and that is tattoo of it on my body to celebrate. Why can't you wait? I know that Ian McMillan a hard time during the NCAA tournament when he said that he would get a Razorbacks tattoo somewhere on his body if they made it to the Final Four, and they were one game away. Now, that's a slightly different scenario, but this guy all but guaranteed for life the Celtics were winning the NBA Finals. And maybe he felt good about it a week or so ago, but I don't know what he's going to do. He'll make some local newscasts and someone will write a feature story about him. It'll be 10 years down the road. We'll look back at the Celtics guy with the green wig and we'll laugh at it. But I don't know, man. That's forever. And he decided to jump on board just to get a little bit of airtime. Who's laughing?
It's a terrible play. I just don't see like the risk to reward proportion and ratio of that just
Yes.
doesn't make sense. And like at a certain point, once you get blessed with the Celtics in the finals and like you're on the brink of it being right, you kind of have to hedge and put a large amount on the hedge just so that you can win some money to take it off if anything goes wrong. And I
No
bet you he
question.
didn't do that at all.
Yes,
And
without question.
so
Like at least
awful.
at least bet enough money that will cover the cost of tattoo removal, right? Like that should be your hedge.
Exactly. Listen, it's not my body though. He lost. The Celtics lost. The Warriors are 2022 NBA champions. Steph Curry has his fourth ring, and I don't know. For me, all is right in the world. So that's fantastic. I do want to give myself some props because I did call Warriors in 6. So I'm very happy
You
and
and
I'm
me
very
both,
proud of
man.
myself.
We both had that, and then Warriors did. I had a Warriors at 9-1 at the start of the playoffs. I did bet last night on the show some sort of an emo hedge. I did think Boston would extend it, even though
Mhm.
initially I thought it would be Warriors in 6. So I ended up being wrong, but being right. And once in a while, when something like that happens, you feel pretty good about it.
Yep. And so listen, you had your 9-1 bet cash last night. Let's move on though to our best bets for tonight. We each have 3 plays. We have some MLB, some College World Series, some WNBA. I want to start with you, and so why don't you start with your two picks in both baseball leagues, and then I'll go with mine, and then we can get to our WNBA stuff.
Yeah, let's start it off on the side. We'll go from the majors to the college side for the start of my best bets for tonight. So the first one I'm going with Shane Baz. It could be Shane Baz, Shane Baz. I've heard it pronounced both different ways, but the number one pitching prospect for the Tampa Bay Rays. And Donovan, I don't know if you know anything about the Tampa Bay Rays organization, but they thrive in developing young pitching and young talented hitters because they're not going to be able to keep you long term. So they develop well in the draft, they execute very effectively. And his over tonight on the road against the Baltimore Orioles in dead last AL East is only set at 4.5. Earlier in the day, you could have gotten this odds on the over at plus odds. We were a little late to the party, and at WinBet, they currently have it at minus 105. Had a rough start. 23-year-old went only 2 1/3 innings against the Minnesota Twins. Gave up 5 earned runs. He only punched out 2 batters in 2 1/3 innings. But this is an arm that excels. Talking about a mid to high fastball, wipeout slider. And in 4 starts in the year, he averaged just under 14 strikeouts per 9 innings. Those are absurd numbers, regardless of whether you're at the minor league level, at the major league level, at the T-ball level, which you wouldn't be pitching because you're putting it on a tee. Regardless, that type of number is spectacular. And I'm going to go with the overall talent of Shane Baz going up against an Orioles that bottom 7 in strikeout percentage this year. And to put it on top of all that, Donovan, it's his birthday today. How do I take an under stud pitcher on his birthday? I think Tampa is sitting pretty against a struggling Orioles team right now. I know that the Baltimore Orioles game's a little bit closer than they should, but I like them quite a bit, especially with Baz on the mound. I like that over 4.5 minus 105. I'm not banking on last performance to dictate how I think he does in this performance tonight. What do you think about Baz on the mound?
Listen, you can't hate on somebody on their birthday.
No.
You can't do it. You just can't do it. So off of that fact alone, I like the prop.
All right, so you and I were already in agreement on that one. So I'll go from baseball on the big league level to ball on the college level. I've been to the College World Series. I have a good friend of mine that grew up in Omaha to experience, I want to call it pageantry that feels very college football-y, but if anything, like I've gotten a chance to go and check out that stadium in Omaha, experience it. It is awesome. And I'm already on a game for tonight as the College World started to kick off. And that is Texas. I think Texas is sitting in a really good spot tonight. They are minus 138 over at WinBet Sportsbook. And a lot of it has to do with the pitching matchup for tonight. Pete Hansen's a lefter. He had some struggles, Donovan, coming into the last couple games. Gave up 5 runs per regional. Texas still was able to weather the storm. And they have a player by the name of Ivan Melendez. His name is the Hispanic Titanic. And this dude absolutely breaks. Collegiate baseball player of the year. I know that it's your Longhorn, so you're already going to back me on this one. But the matchup tonight against Notre Dame, Texas destroys left-handed pitching. Notre Dame's best starting pitcher is a left-hander who's had a few moments of being up and down. Overall, great. But I think Texas is just too strong tonight, given that they might have one of the best hitter and pitcher combinations in all of college baseball. So I like Texas on the money line when they go at it tonight, Friday night, for game 1 of the College World Series in Omaha.
Yeah, listen, you said it. It's my alma mater, so I'm obviously just gonna ride with them. The Oklahoma Texas A&M game earlier today, and I have written the preview for it, was one of the ugliest previews. I did not want to write it. I can't stand either of those schools, but it is what it is. So yeah, I'll roll with Texas. I'll roll with Texas tonight. I want to get your thoughts on my pick, because I'm going to go back to the majors. I'm going to take Framber Valdez under 5.5 strikeouts, minus 112. And so Valdez, he's been a little bit inconsistent. He hits this line kind of like every other game, and he'll hit it and come back down, hit it, come back down. And And so, he kind of stays around this line, but I'm gonna fade him tonight because he's playing the Chicago White Sox. And even though that the White Sox aren't a great team, they're one of the hardest teams in the MLB to strike out. They average the seventh fewest strikeouts per game. And another reason why I think that Valdez is going to come under this line is because during the month of May, a lot of his starts were going longer. You were seeing him going seven innings, maybe a little bit longer than that. The last two starts, he's come back down to 6 innings. That's kind of been the cap for where he's been at. And so I think that if you're talking about him maybe having a shorter start than what he's used to, and facing a really really tough strikeout team like the White Sox, on top of the fact that he's already inconsistent and he cleared it in the last game, I think you're getting a little bit of value with the under on this one.
White Sox are a fascinating team, and I pay attention to them maybe a little bit more than most teams. Being a Chicago guy and still staying in touch with a lot of friends in Chicago media, they're underachieving. And you're right, like from the ability to put the ball in play, they're one of the better teams in baseball. With Valdez, he's had a really good season, best ERA of his career since 2018 when he first came onto the scene. Only started 5 games that year, but he's got a 2.64 ERA. Expected ERA is just a tad bit higher at 3.09. He's brought down his walk rate a little bit, but the biggest difference for Valdez is he's not giving up as many home runs. One of the low per 9 inning rates in all of baseball at 0.36. And you're right, like 5.5 strikeouts for Valdez, a consistent number, especially when you look at his strikeout per 9. Like he's just not anywhere near the levels that we became accustomed to him. And it almost seems like he's trying to keep the ball down a little bit more pitch to contact. Yeah, he got the 6 against Miami, but that team that's been swinging a little bit more freely. He's always right around there. And I feel like because his numbers are overall this season, that the strikeout prop continues to rise for him, when in reality, 4.5, 5, probably right number. So I don't mind the under on Valdez tonight against the White Sox, especially with how good Chicago is in putting the ball in play.
Nice. Okay. Cool. So I'm glad we're kind of seeing eye to eye there. I wanna kind of transition now into our WNBA talk for the week. And so my first best bet for the WNBA tonight, I'm going with the Wings -5 versus the Mercury. It's -110, and so the Wings. There's a couple things in play for Dallas tonight. So one, it's going to be a bounce back game for them. They've lost. They've lost about four in a row. I can't remember if they. In those 4 losses, they've played the Aces twice and they've played the Storm twice. And so you've just been hit with a barrage from the best team in the league twice and a really, really good Seattle team that's tough, that's hard nosed, defensive minded. And while they are improved, I still don't expect them, to go out and beat the Las Vegases of the world and the Seattles of the world. And so those games, I kind of give them a pass for that. And then if you talk about, what Phoenix has been doing, Phoenix, they got back on the right track a little bit. They've won, around 3 of their last 4, but they're still ninth. They're still ninth in defensive rating in the league. And the last time that they played Dallas, they lost by 10. So I think that this is a good spot for the Wings to kind of get back on track now that they're not playing again the elite of the elite in the WNBA, and they're at home. So I think that -5 is a pretty good line for them tonight.
I think it's a really good line. And this is somebody that took the Mercury to cover against Washington in both games. Didn't happen in game 2. They ended up getting demolished 83-65, but they beat Washington on the road 99-90. But look at the Mercury schedule. They're in the midst of 4 games in their last 5 days on the road. 2 again, so they at least got a chance to stay in Washington, but still on the road. Then had to play the next day on a back-to-back at Indiana, and then 2 days later, you got another game against Dallas on the road. I think this Mercury team, despite the fact that they had been playing better, they've won 4 of their last 5 games, but that loss against Washington was very unimpressive, especially considering how they dominated them just a couple days ago. Yeah, they went ahead and beat Indiana, but everybody's beating Indiana right now. And on the Dallas side, to your point, yeah, like they're in the midst of a 4-game losing streak, but they've been in all of those games and they've just let it slip away. That game against Las Vegas, Donovan, they allowed 57 points to the Aces in the second half. That was a Wednesday noon tip, and they were from the get-go. And because they couldn't stop the Aces in the second half, I had a terrible bad beat on the under in that game, which I know you, because you're giving me a hard time about it, and rightfully so. So I like Dallas here. I think my only concern is that they put their foot on the pedal and close games. Too many of these games, yes, against good competition like Seattle and Las Vegas. We're talking, the best team in the league and a top 3, top 4 team in the league. But they need to close out games. I'm a little bit concerned that it's a close game. That's not an area of strength for them. But 5 feels like the right number against a tired Mercury team. They should blow them out, but if it's close, I'm going to be a little bit concerned.
Yeah. So where are you going? Because I know that you have a WNBA pick yourself.
I do. It's interesting because I wanted to get on board the Sue Bird Storm train. I called it the Sue Bird Bounce in our article today over at BetSided, which you guys can check out because we do have plays on several of the games and odds and information for all of them as well. And I still think Connecticut is a tad bit overrated. But -8 against a really good team. I worry a little bit about this being like a game of maybe more importance for Seattle. They've played really well on the road, but an aspect to them that you can't really trust them. They're very inconsistent despite being a really good and winning several of the last games in a row. So I'm going first half for the Connecticut Sun at -3. It's a bit of high odds 30, but over the last 5 games, there has not been a better first half team in the WNBA than the Connecticut Sun. They're first in offensive rating. They're first in net rating. Conversely, Seattle has been a struggling first half team, especially over games. They're 8th worst in net rating. They're 9th worst in offensive rating. And credit to Seattle, we were talking about Dallas. Games, the Wings were in control against the Storm, and the Storm came back. That's kind of what they do. They play second halves really. But I do like Connecticut to get off to a good start. I wonder a little bit if Sue Bird's just not going to come out with the same type of intensity. I don't think that's a fair statement to make, but maybe a little bit more pressure, knowing that she just made this announcement. She's continuing on the road. It's Sun defense. I just think right now Connecticut shows consistently over time that they're the best first half, and you go up against a Storm team that's just been notoriously slow. I think 3 points is a reasonable number, and I like that number quite a bit, even at -130 odds.
Yeah, it's actually shocking to see you starting to hop on the Sun train a little bit, because you have been calling them overrated kind of all year. You've been calling them bum slayers. But I like the pick a lot. So for my last pick, and this also comes from the WNBA, I'm gonna go with the Dream and Sky under 157. I think that this is just a perfect matchup for the under. I think both teams play really well, and it's their styles kind of lead to a slower pace of game. And it's funny because on the very flip side, the Dream play at one of the fastest paces in the league. They're one of the fastest teams in the league. However, the defense from both of these teams are fantastic. The Dream have the #1 defensive rating in the league, according to her hoop stats. The Sky are #4 in defensive rating. And so what I think you're going to get, even though Atlanta likes to play fast, I think the defense steps up from both sides. And on top of that, Atlanta has the worst offense in the league. They have the best defense and the worst offense.
Yeah.
And so if we're going to see, kind of a one-sided matchup where Chicago is able to be the efficient team in this game, and they're the ones who are able to, break through the defense a little bit more, I don't know where Atlanta finds its way to keep up. Maybe they could do it by forcing turnovers, maybe getting out in transition. But I think that Chicago defensively has enough tools to come back right on the other side and do the same thing to Atlanta and kind of keep this game in a very, very slow, environment. On the season, these teams are 11, 15, and 1 against the over. That's their combined record. So I see the defense stepping up for both of these teams. I think Atlanta is going to have a hard time scoring on Chicago, and so I think under 157 is the play tonight. What are your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, and we've actually seen this line move up a little bit to 158.5. So for anybody that hasn't had an opportunity to jump in on the under, you have an even better line now at under 158.5 over at WinBet. What's interesting right now is that you're kind of catching Atlanta at a rough portion of the season. They had been so good, and Ryan Howard had been absolutely dominant, and now they're kind of going through a stretch where they're struggling bit on the road, struggling to find some consistency. The mark about their defense is really, really interesting because you're right. They've been the best rated defensive team all season long, tops in opponent points per 100 possessions. But then you go and just get demolished, give up 105 points. And I think that was by design on the road against Connecticut. I think the Sun wanted to run on the Dream and make things uncomfortable for them defensively. And it forced Atlanta to play a type of basketball that they're just not accustomed to doing. And yeah, they scored 92 points in their last two games. They've scored 88 points against Phoenix and 92 points against Connecticut. And those are good offensive numbers. But the Dream played their best, Donovan, when they're slowing you down, they're attacking you defensively, and we just haven't seen that from them for the last couple of games. I think against Chicago, which is a team that's really healthy, playing really good basketball right now, Chicago likes to slow things down a little bit too. They can push pace when they need to. But I think it makes sense. I think both of these teams play at their best when they are in control of the pace. And so I think the under on 158.5 is probably the way to go. I would kind of bet that game, but I do think your assessment on it is certainly, I think these are two very good defensive teams, and I'm expecting the Dreams level on offense to come back a little bit, but at the same time, I expect their defense to start to show up a little bit more as well.
Yeah. All right. Well, those are our best bets for today. I know that we have a recap graphic with all of our best bets in one place. So you are going over 4.5 on Shane Baz, either way, on
The
his
Baz man,
strikeouts.
yeah. The Baz attack is back, Jack.
Let's do it. You have Texas money line in the College World Series against Notre Dame, and then you're going the Connecticut Sun first half -3 against the Seattle Storm. I'm going with the under on Framber Valdez's strikeouts at 5.5. I'm taking the Dallas Wings -5 versus the Phoenix Mercury, and then I'm taking the under at 157 in the Dream versus Sky tonight. And so those are our best bets for today. I want to switch gears. We're gonna move kind of in the same space though, in the same basketball space. So obviously NBA Finals wrap up last night. Odds get released today. Every team gets their finals odds for next season. And while we can sit here and we all have like our picks and maybe our dark horses, there were a couple teams that I think both of us saw and said, that's interesting. And so each one of us, we're going to give our overpriced team and our underpriced team, maybe a team that you see a little bit of value on going into next season. So I want to start with the overpriced. Who is getting too much love in the futures market for next season?
It's not a team that's going to contend, yet they're still at a price point that are going to be a playoff team and possibly make some noise. Donovan, the Utah Jazz. I know that Donovan Mitchell shares your namesake, but he may not be there next year. They're terrible. We already know that this team's getting blown up. The coach walked away. Quinn Snyder and the organization parted ways. They're a mess right now. It could be Donovan Mitchell gone. It could be Rudy Gobert gone. Mike Conley's not getting any younger as well. Bojan Bogdanovic, a nice spot-up shooter, but he's dealt with some injuries. They're a team in transition that I think by the time you look at their roster next year, I just don't know which pieces on this team are going to make you feel like, yeah, Utah's position to contend in an improved Western Conference. The fact that they're even above 50-1 tells me that I think odds makers understand that they're going to be worse. I don't think they're fully prepared, and I guess we've lost Donnavan from the mix. So let's talk more Utah Jazz basketball. But seriously, I have serious doubts about what the Jazz roster construction is going to look like. I don't know whether or not it's going to be a position to contend. We don't know what their current situation is going to be. The fact that they're coming in at 48-1 census price tells me that this is not a team that you should expect much from, especially knowing that I don't want to say a complete rebuild because there's still some talent there, but they're not a team that's going to be contending, and they're anywhere less than 50-1 is a team that's going to be ridiculously overpriced in the market. When it come back, I will go ahead and let you know about my team that I believe is underpriced, and that's the Minnesota Timberwolves. Minnesota comes in at 80-1 for their consensus odds right now to win the NBA Finals next year. And do I think they're going to win the Finals? No, but we're trying to evaluate where teams are substantially mispriced along the way. You guys watched the first round of the playoffs. You saw a Minnesota team led by Karl Anthony. Yes, there were certain games where they didn't show up, but they finally got a taste of what it's like to play at some of the highest levels in basketball. Took that series very deep against the Memphis Grizzlies. Nearly found a way to pull it off towards the end. But Memphis was obviously the better team. But you have another year of development. And I think Anthony Edwards, like we talked about, Ja Morant is that dude. And he was someone that I wrote about over at BetSided as I think, like, if you're looking for a dark horse MVP pick, I think initially he came out at either 40-1 or 50-1. Taking that massive step in his third year, you already saw a huge jump from Anthony Edwards too. There's no reason why Edwards can't be that guy in year 3. And if he takes that leap for Minnesota with Russell, with Towns, with the rest of that team intact, trying to figure out sort of where their ideal perfect fit is at the 1 and having a little bit more rim protection. Yeah, Towns can protect the rim, but he likes to be outside. They have a lot of different ways to be able to move around. The Timberwolves can factor that in as Donnavan is back with us now. I was just saying, Donnavan, that the team that I think is severely underpriced is Minnesota at 80-1 because Anthony Edwards has that ability in him next year to take the same type of steps that Ja Morant did last year. Entering year 3, showing signs of brilliance in year 2, but just not doing it consistently enough. And the Timberwolves, they were dogged by some defensive issues, but you saw some improvement in the second half. This team got tougher. The fact that they're 80-1 tells me that I just makers see their potential in what they can be, especially with 3 really good players on that roster. Did we lose him again? Oh man, I think we lost. We'll try to get him back on as he's frozen up. It's a Freaky Friday edition of the Daily Betslip. Hopefully I don't close my eyes and wake up and I'm in somebody else's body. But I think that's what for anybody that's watching the chat, you can remind me what Freaky Friday was all about. I thought it's like Jennifer Garner and somebody else that like they meet each other. I thought there was a movie too with Ryan Reynolds and Jason Bateman, but I don't think that was called Freaky Friday. I'm clearly rambling. Lindsay Lohan, thank you, Joanne. Yeah, Lindsay Lohan in Freaky Friday and Jamie Lee Curtis. Wow, I don't think I was even close when it came to trying to make that pull on the Freaky Friday connection, and done a fair amount of times as well. As we're waiting for Donnavan to come back, let me let you guys know about these new 2023 NBA championship odds have come in. You have the Warriors consensus as the favorites at 6-1. They're followed by Boston at plus 650. The Brooklyn Nets at plus 700. I think a lot of you might look at Brooklyn and say this is a team that should be up near the top. Donnavan, we got you back, man?
Yes, sir.
All right.
We're back here. And so I heard your Timberwolves play.
Okay.
And
Glad you
and
heard
he
that and not the part remember Freaky Friday.
I no listen, I heard that too. I just didn't want to. I didn't want to not acknowledge that. Come on, man. That's a Lindsay Lohan classic.
I
But
know
no, so
Lindsay Lohan from Mean Girls and the Parent Trap, and that's pretty.
okay, okay. So I heard your Timberwolves thing, and I actually think that they're properly priced.
Okay.
I actually wouldn't go near a Timberwolves future. I don't think that they're going to make the playoffs next year. I think that with everybody, I think that with everybody coming back, you're talking about the Clippers who are going to be there and improved with Kawhi Leonard. You're talking about a Lakers squad that I expect to be a little bit better. A
Can't be much
Nuggets
worse.
squad that exactly. A Nugget squad that's gonna have Jamal Murray back. The West is gonna be super, super loaded. And so I expect the Timberwolves to be back in the playing game. And if we're talking about them against a Pelicans team with Zion Williamson, which is a big if, but
Yeah.
even if they play New Orleans without Zion, I like this current version of New Orleans. They're really, really good. They pushed Phoenix to 6 games. So I would take them, I would take the Clippers, and I would take a healthy Lakers squad over the Timberwolves next year. So I don't even think that they're going to make it out of the play-in. So I wouldn't necessarily touch them. I do want to get your take on my overpriced team that I think is getting a little bit too much love. I think the Dallas Mavericks at 12-1 plus 1,200 are a little bit overpriced. I know that everybody's kind of fallen in love with Luka this past year. The Mavericks, they just made that deal to go get Christian Wood, kind of get them the big that they were needing. And
Yeah.
the fit seems to make sense. But I'm just not there on them. Do you think that they're gonna, be able to take that next step next year?
It's tough to evaluate. Like, let me ask you this: if they bring back Jalen Brunson, how do you feel about it then? Because that is a big if at this point.
It is. I still don't think that they make the top four in the West. I don't think that they get home court advantage. I really think that listen, the Nuggets, if the Nuggets get Jamal Murray back, they're in the conversation to get to the finals, like legitimately. They won 48 games this year with just Nikola Jokic. And so if you're talking about him being able to get a little bit of help, and we're not even talking about if Michael Porter Jr. is going to be able to give them any type of serviceable minutes. So like the Nuggets have a lot of pieces to get into the top four. I still expect the Suns, the Warriors, and the Grizzlies to kind of occupy that top space. And even the Clippers, if the Clippers are able to be healthy for a majority of the season, I think all five of those teams have a better chance to be in the top four. So that's why I'm not really sold on Dallas as a true contender.
Yeah, I think a reasonable argument. And let's say they do move on from Jalen Brunson and they decide that he's not worth that type of money that he's requesting. Like you need another guard to pair up with Luka. Yeah, you have Dinwiddie there. He can run parts of the point when Luka's not playing. Um, there's just a lot more questions. And Dallas is so slow that it's good for them to have somebody that can light it up from anywhere on the court. That if they need to push pace, they can. Brown type of guy. I don't know, man. Like I think I saw for the first time for Dallas like a full commitment to the defensive end that we just hadn't seen before, and it completely changed their toughness. It completely changed their demeanor. Doncic was take over games when he needed to, but they played a style that was actually a little bit more suited to him. And with credit, you're not going to get that same type of rim protection, but you still have Finney Smith, you still have Dwight Powell, that they can come in and help on the defensive side, and you can move Wood to the four. I don't know. I think they are a very quality team. And the way you're talking about Denver, yeah, having Murray back is big, but Denver still has a lot of holes. And we have to talk about Michael Porter Jr. in the same way that we talk about Zion, which is in the hypothetical. You just don't
Yeah.
know when he's going to be back, if at all. He adds some versatility and he adds a lot of scoring, but Denver got crushed defensively this year. And a defender, he's not a great defender. And Porter doesn't really play a lot of defense either. So I'm not as high on Denver as maybe you might be. But I think Dallas could probably take them if they were to be in a 4 or 5 seed. Pick Dallas at least right now to win.
Okay. Okay. That's and again, everything that you're saying is fair. My underpriced team, though, I have the Cavaliers as my underpriced team. That they are plus. What are they? They are
100 to
plus
1.
10,000. Yeah, 100 to 1. And I think that that's kind of disrespectful because it puts them lower than the Bulls and it puts them lower than the Hawks. And when all those teams were healthy, like the Bulls were really good, but for a majority of the season, Cleveland was right there with them, and we even saw Cleveland was outside the play-in. They were a top 6 seed, and Jared Allen goes down. There's Evan Mobley goes down for some time. Karis LeVert ends up missing time. They were just hit by too many injuries, and I think that the East is wide open, and there's a lot of good teams out east, but to have them below the Hawks is absolutely ridiculous to me right now. I don't see the vision for the Hawks to be better. I think that the Cavaliers, you're going to get another jump from Darius Garland. You're going to get a jump from Evan Mobley. Those Twin Towers, the defense that they just offer so many things that I just don't understand why they're lower than the Hawks in this sense.
I was thinking about Cleveland as my pick for underpriced teams, and they were a team that I remember jumping on the middle of the season at 350 to 1. Just throw a little pizza money on it. Why not? And then maybe you try and consider hedging if they do end up making it past whatever first round matchup they were likely going to get. Now they didn't make a tournament; they dealt with some injuries along the way. But you're right; like it's a really talented team, and I'm curious as to what they're going to do with Colin Sexton moving forward. Right, like that's a dude that you really got to figure out what that future is going to be because you have Garland, you have LeVert, and I suppose you can have at the three. You can use him as sort of that outside 3-and-D type of player, but he's not a good defender. So maybe try and figure out another better alternative option. The good news is that you have Mobley behind him who can be great defensive rim. You can move him out. He can take open jump shots as well. And they need Jared Allen to stay healthy. All of these factors in make Cleveland a nice, young, talented team that's maybe still a year or two away from really starting to cement themselves. But are they better than 100 to 1 odds and a team like Atlanta, which you just don't know which Hawks team is going to show up? Yeah, I certainly think that's in play. Are they better than the Raptors? No, I still think Toronto deserves a higher ranking for them. But I do like Cleveland to be one of those teams that could be a little bit more dangerous next year, especially with that core getting another year to play together.
Exactly, and listen. I don't know that Toronto point is debatable. I really think that we like missed out on a lot of good Cleveland basketball this year because of the injury bug, and so like you said though, it's going to be really interesting moving forward, especially going into next year and seeing how everybody gels once they get back, what they do with the Colin Sexton situation. But let's get to our game of the night. The reason why we're all here. The New York Yankees and the Toronto Blue Jays are playing tonight. This game is actually a pick'em. It's actually a pick'em minus 105 on both sides. The total is at 9.5. Um, I listen. I was actually kind of surprised to see this game as close as it was, just because the Yankees are just dominant right now, right? They've won 14 of the last 15. They've won 7 straight, 19 out of 22. They have a 10-game lead in the AL East, and so I know this it's a divisional matchup. It's the first game of the series, but um, my best bet, and you could probably see where I'm going with this, but my best bet for the game is Yankees money line. I think that they're live to win. I think that they are the clear favorite in this game and that they're the clear better team.
It's hard to argue with that given the Yankees' success, right? 7 straight games, 9-1 their last 10. Toronto dropped a bit of a disappointing game the to Baltimore, but they're still playing really well in the month of June. And from a run differential perspective, his run differential as of June 17th, Donovan, is plus 131. The Blue Jays is plus 36. Now, plus 36 is nothing to sneeze at. That's a very solid one, but it's third in the division. Boston, who only sits 4 games above 500, actually has a better expected win-loss record than Toronto. And then Tampa Bay is only a game behind, yet they have a 3.5 game lead in the division. I think there is a substantial factor to Toronto playing at home. I like both pitchers in this game, and that's part of the reason why, because it is a pick'em, my first reaction was to lean Yankees too. I thought it would be slightly higher odds. Instead, I'm going to take the under, which is at 9.5. I know both offenses are really good, but are solid too. Ross Stripling's had a really nice year for Toronto. Comes with a 3.14 ERA. His field pitching is actually less than that. His FIP comes in at under 3 at 2.97. Jordan Montgomery's awesome year. Comes in with a 2.70 ERA. Made 12 starts this year. Not walking anybody. He has a walk per 9 rate of 1.35. So he's throwing strikes for a while too this year. He's had not been scoring runs for him, and that's been a consistent theme throughout the course of the year. He's 2-1, should have a lot more wins, but for reason, Jacob deGrom has had to deal with this for a long time with the New York Mets. They just don't score runs for him, and I don't know if that's necessarily factoring into the under. I just think you have two good pitchers that don't give up a lot of home runs, that pitch to contact well and get a lot of weak contact. Even though Toronto can play like a bandbox, it's not Yankee Stadium. And I think you're going to see like a 4-3 game tonight. And the under 9.5 is going to be completely in play all throughout. It's going to be a fun pitchers duel between two very talented. So I like the under for Yankees and Blue Jays tonight at 9.5.
Okay, I think that's very interesting because, like, if you look at the Yankees, out their offensive statistics, the one place that they clearly stand, above the rest is in home runs, right? So they're first in the league in home runs per game. They average 1.6 homers per game. If you want to talk about hits per game, they are 16th in the league. They're 27th in doubles, right? So they're not getting a lot of extra base hits. They're 13th in batting average, 25th in at bats per game. So everywhere else they're actually like kind of average. So it's gonna be very interesting to see what version of the Yankees come out. And so we did have our poll. We asked everybody to chime in on Twitter and on YouTube. And so whatever the community says, that's going to be the side that we're gonna ride with. And the community actually sided with me, and we are one and the same tonight. And they are also on Yankees money line, so I will double down on my Yankees pick. You can do what you will with the Yankees money line tonight. But I'm very happy that the community and I on the same pick for the second day in a row, because they were also on Warriors +4 last night as well.
Okay. Yeah, the community, I think, is at a peak. Had a couple winners, I believe, on Tuesday and Wednesday as well. I think the community, if I'm not mistaken, and certainly don't quote me on this, even though we're live on the air right now, I believe the community's gone 4-1 in picks this week. So can't ask for more. Like if we're all in this together, you guys are siding with us. What more can we ask for? Way to end the week.
Exactly. So listen, that's a great pick to end the show on, to start our weekend with. That has been Daily Betslip for today. Listen, remember, every Monday through Friday, we are streaming live on Twitter and YouTube at 5 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Central, with everybody from the crew. And so we will see everybody on Monday. Again, shout out to our producer, Joanne Stoner, who handles everything behind the scenes. And until next time, may all your bets hit.